Joining us on this Thursday.
We have a Fox News alert for you now. Al-Qaeda linked group now vowing to march on in Baghdad after taking over city after city.
Yep, getting closer and closer to the capital. Elizabeth Pran is following these breaking details. Elizabeth, how close are they getting?
Well, they're getting pretty close. A spokesman for the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant have proclaimed their eyes are set on Baghdad after seizing two key cities in the north this week. On Wednesday, the group took Saddam Hussein's hometown of Tikrit following the capture of Mosul, Iraq's second largest city. The group and its allies among local tribesmen also hold the city of Fallujah and other pockets to the west. A spokesman for the Islamic State says the group is now focusing on Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki. His government in Baghdad, obviously, the Iraqi leader, is a Shiite, and he's trying to hold on to power after an indecisive election back in April. Now, al-Maliki has called on Parliament to declare a state of emergency that would extend his powers to run the country with more power, obviously. Elizabeth, Steve, Brian, back to you guys.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you very much. And, you know, and we look at those images, and it's just heartbreaking because all the war gains that we have made over the last 10 years, it looks like they have been squandered. I mean, you look, Mosul, Fallujah, Tikrit, gone. Now they're marching on Baghdad. And I saw one report this morning that apparently the U.S. Embassy is preparing to evacuate. The United Nations about to get out of Dodge as well. It wasn't supposed to happen like this.
Right, and the administration also declined requests, as we know, by Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki for air support, saying that they're pretty much on their own. They were asking for drones, something through air to help them here. Years of hard-fought gains in Iraq. You know, we're asking you out there, do you think it was just wasted?
Look at all these are people on the road out of Mosul. They know that their town has been overtaken by insurgents. They know if they want to be alive, they better get out of town.
Well, they don't have to be alive.
It's another crisis.
Steve, they have 30,000 Iraqi soldiers in Mosul alone. They got warning ahead of time that ISIS is coming into town. So 800 of them scared off 30,000 Iraqi soldiers who we trained, we armed. So they leave all their stuff, dropped their weapons. They are now in the hands of the insurgents. They have now taken over major cities and emptied the prisons. So the worst terrorists that we locked up are gone. So where is this area? This is Sunni Triangle. These are 6 or 7 major cities, and it stretches right through Syria. They ignore the border. And now you got to wonder if they're going to try to squeeze off and suffocate Baghdad. We have this huge facility in Baghdad, the biggest embassy I think that we have in the world. Yep. Think about all the documents we lost in Benghazi. Compare that. That's a small portion, a tiny portion compared to what we could lose in terms of lives and material if Baghdad is to be invaded.
That border is ultimately porous. And speaking of ultimately, Admiral John Kirby, Pentagon spokesman, said that ultimately this is for the Iraqi service forces and Iraqi government to deal with.
Well, how many American lives were lost trying to liberate the country of Iraq? And that's why it's heartbreaking to see these images where people thought they were safe and now they're running for their lives. Because of a campaign promise. I'm going to close things down there, and he did in 2011. We asked you for your reaction, and the email machine's been lighting up. Maria wrote in this morning, what is wrong with 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? What did our soldiers die for when they went to Iraq to give the people their independence?
Dan Henniger, by the way, wrote in the Wall Street Journal today, the fall of Mosul is as big as Russia annexing the Crimea. We just don't hear from the president on this. He just sits there.
Dave just emailed us here, not doing anything in Iraq makes the Iraq war not only worthless, but disrespectful to the men and women who died to protect our freedom and an insult to their families.
And this tweet from Larry, what's happening today in Iraq will happen again in Afghanistan in about 2 years when we leave. What a waste. And that's why when Secretary of State Kerry says baloney, we don't have to worry about these 5 guys. Well, if these 5 guys going back to Afghanistan eventually, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? If it doesn't matter that Afghanistan will go back to the Taliban-run government after we spend 13 years there, then it is baloney and it's no big deal. But I sense people out there don't feel that way, that it's not okay to spend 13 years in a country trying to give it a chance to vote for their own government and not have women oppressed and be forbidden from going to school or have any rights, and then just turn it back over.
So we're not helping the Iraqis, but we are helping illegals get into this country, because there's news this morning that now the United States government has opened at least a 3rd military base to house the thousands of illegal kids that are streaming across our border. Our border is so open, kids armed simply with a bottle of water can walk across, they come on in, and then when they're picked up by the Border Patrol, they're given notice to appear letters, also known as run letters, and they're told, okay, come back 15 days from now.
Right, all
they never come back.
What
they
I
just
understand
disappear into the landscape.
What I understand is they think when they get these papers that they got citizenship. That's how confused they are. They're like, great, I'm in. So they come in there without parents, without any type of support. So they get gathered up now, picked up in vans or planes and brought over to a neighboring state or to a military base.
Right, Steve, you sat down with Judge Napolitano earlier, and this was his take on the situation.
This is being done at the invitation of the President of the United States of America, who has violated his oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws by announcing 13 months ago that he would not enforce the immigration laws. As a result of his telling people how to break the law, how to stay here illegally, he has invited their friends and relatives in Mexico and Central America to start this massive, until a few days ago, when Megyn Kelly revealed this, under-the-radar movement of children.
And some of the children, according to Ted Cruz, who was on our air yesterday, says that cartels are using the children. Also, and this, of all the stuff I've read, this next fact is one of the scariest things. Of the thousands of kids who are now being released. Okay, and to put it into perspective, a couple of years ago, back in 2009, 3,300 kids were stopped at the border. This year, it's 50,000. Next year, it is expected at the administration's directive to be even higher than that. But Michelle Malkin is saying that law enforcement sources in Texas say of the thousands of kids who are being released into the general public right now, a lot of them are testing positive for TB. So they know they've got TB down in our border, and what do? They put them on an airplane. They put them on a bus. You think that's going to spread? Absolutely.
Yeah. So
well, the ones that they detect are the ones that they detect, and then others that are not run undetected.
Absolutely.
Then also filter in. Sad situation.
So if you want to know what's going on in South America or Central America and why they're coming here all of a sudden, if you listen to the administration, they say, well, it's really bad down there. The drug cartels are getting tough. No, they've always been tough. And there's no more economic strife today than there was 2 or 3, 4, 5 or 6, 7 years ago. There's actually advertisements in some Central American newspapers that are encouraging illegal immigrants. For example, that'll say this, and translate it. During their stay, in addition to accommodation and food, if you come here, children will receive English classes, play sports, and participate in targeted programs with immigration authorities while immigration authorities contact their families. None of that's happening, obviously.
No, there's on paper, ad for those to continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah. The National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers says the federal government is arranging the flood of illegals for political purposes. It is happening because of the administration, they say.
And by the way, while the border guards are being nannies and being babysitters because they care about children like we all do, guess who's sneaking across the border? The real bad guys, the drug cartels.
Right. You don't have to sneak. The border is wide open. Because in many spots, it's so rough, it's so violent, our Border Patrol agents aren't even there.
But with the focus on the young ones there, Brian, I'm sure, to your point, there are many others shifting around their eyes.
So